to force white to play Queen A1. This is committal. David, Armageddon is off the cards 100% now.
Guaranteed, I think so, unless the players find a really convoluted way to equalize this. If the piece is captured, look at this. The queen is pretty much trapped. She's forced into the corner. We were laughing about this move, and now black would have multiple ways to continue the attack, but bishop takes g2, for example, blowing open the white king. The knight attacked. This is so unattractive for white, even if he can survive. Understandably avoided by Vincent Keymer. After knight takes e4, clearly a shock. He's reacted very quickly, actually, by playing b3. And wow, Magnus's horses are both under fire. Tanya, this is, yeah, I mean, this is new level chess. What to play even? Knight a3 comes to mind. Knight e3 maybe comes to mind. What a position. What a mess, first of all.
It's total chaos on the board. You mentioned the black horse is under fire. The knight on e2 as well is a hanging piece and can be x-rayed by that black queen on e7 with a knight move. A retreating move by the knight on e4 is not completely off the cards either. David, I just think this knight takes pawn by Magnus took Keymer completely by surprise, by shock, and that can really rattle you off when you have to face this kind of a move. And look at that. Magnus, he's kind of reacts in a way that he's not being able to exactly find the way. Like he's struggling to calculate currently.
Yeah, and I did see a featured chat quite a while ago, a few minutes back, saying, this is how you beat Magnus. You take him into a deep, dark forest and it just becomes random and it's a bit of a gamble. It's very high risk, but the only way you get any reward. So I totally understand what Vincent's doing right now. He went for this whole opening line, for example. So kudos to him. But yeah, Magnus looking frustrated. I love your idea of a knight retreat. Maybe f6 is the safer square just to stop the white queen ever poaching on h7. So you just retreat and you try to take this white knight on e2. That looks like the most kind of controlled approach. I'm trying to do some calculation about some knight jumps into d2. I'm sure Magnus is doing the same. But I mean, I think that white can actually take a knight on d2 and jump in with the white queen to f5 check. And that looks really terminal. The black king suddenly comes under heavy fire. So Magnus, he's got to get his head around all of this. 3 minutes each, Tanya. It's become so random. It's a 50-50. Magnus looks
and you can
so
see it.
annoyed.
You can see how difficult this position is to calculate for you. And David, this is the kind of position you want in a training exercise, given 1 hour and sit and calculate the whole line. Everything is hanging. I even forgot about the h7 pawn. That wasn't even on my radar that you pointed out. So it's the kind of moment that things can go wrong in one move, and Magnus goes knight e3, and apparently it's a great move to start with. Hits that rook on d1. The house is on fire right now.
Both sides, both of their houses are on fire, Tanya. It's the Tower of Terror, these 3 knights just stacked up. It's really reminiscent of the first game where the knights were dancing, jumping around, forks galore, forks all over the place. I did actually check while Magnus was thinking. Top move, knight e3. The top players, they always find the best moves with their back against the wall, even with the clock ticking. Vincent now has to do the same. It's a narrow path to hold the balance. The most obvious move, I guess, would be bishop takes bishop, just to trade things off. You're attacking the black queen, so there's no time for the black knights to keep dancing. Other moves might include just moving the white rook, but it's so crazy right now. Watch out for the black queen to start coming as well to join the attack in the near future. Who would you rather take, Tanya, in this messy position?
Black any day, right? Any day of the week, any day of the year, because it just looks like you're the one coming in with all those threats. Those knights look absolutely menacing. You said the queen joining into the party, attacking that g2 point. Meanwhile, black's king on f8 visually looks really weird, but is pretty safe for the time being. The good news for Vincent here is that he's got time to burn right now. He can take his time, he can slow down, but it's such a difficult position to actually navigate through, and he makes a mistake.
He makes a mistake. I think this is maybe the safest option, but this goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Tanya. This is Vincent's instincts. Players, kind of their nature shines through when the clock ticks down. He just wants to get a position that he understands. That last position was so random, so complicated. He'd rather accept a slightly worse position here with white, where he actually knows what's going on, rather than just totally take a risk. And the reason I wasn't attracted to this is because, as the blue arrow is showing now, black simply wins the material back. It's level material suddenly, but black's piece is far more active than white's. You can imagine a black rook sliding down to c2 soon. There's a danger square on the g2 point. Queen coming to g5. White's queen is forced to a bit of an ugly, awkward square. This is all about Magnus and his bishops. They're raking across the board, Tanya.
Queen b2, I like it because at first you think the bishop is coming to a3, but watch out for, I was going to say tactics, but then I realized it doesn't work because I was going to fall for bishop takes pawn on g7, but maybe it does work, David. Maybe you can go bishop takes pawn.
Yeah, I'll quickly show this as Magnus thinks he wants to keep his bishop pair alive. Bishops work best as a pair, of course. Bishop a3 is possible because after bishop takes g7, it's important here. After queen takes bishop, Tanya, I guess you initially thought, ooh, queen takes g2, but it is a check. So your instincts were right first time around. And a check, white saves himself next move.
I thought I just walked into a checkmate, but it does work for white, so everything's fine there. So bishop a3 doesn't work, then how do you keep the pieces? Because if you were to trade and neutralize the bishop pair, I think Keymer's doing well. Bishop takes d4, Keymer's super happy with that position.
Yeah, Magnus would love to keep the bishops. I just want to mention bishop back to d6 as well. There's still the same tactic of capturing on g7 because after the dust settles, after all those trades, the bishop would be vulnerable on that post. So process of elimination, the only safe square is actually b4 if you want to keep the bishops on. Magnus, though, he looks uneasy. He looks uncomfortable. Ooh, he plays the move.
Yeah.
Process of elimination.
The clocks are leveling out. Bishop b4, you find it, he finds it, rook c2 coming in. It might be time to challenge on the c5. You can't allow the black rook to step into the second rank. David, that looks terrifying to me. Rook c1 is the move that I would play instantly because I don't want to see your rook landing anywhere close to that queen.
1000% agree, Tanya. I think there we go. Vincent finds it. I was about to say process of elimination. This time for him, he has to find it. Both sides finding only moves. Magnus grimaces. He knows he's better. Magnus isn't risking much if he trades the rooks. But with the kings slightly vulnerable like this for both sides, there's still a lot to play for, a lot on the line. And Tanya, most impressively, over 90% accuracy for both players so far, despite how crazy this game has been.
And not just this game, this entire match has been so high on accuracy, and it's just been awesome to watch. And this has been a wild, wild position from the start. Now touching under 1 minute mark for both players. David, I know I said that Armageddon is off the cards, but it might be back on again.
Yeah, commentator's curse. As soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh no, Armageddon's coming!" I could just feel it. I didn't want to call you out, but I was like, "Oh, I've done it myself so many times, Tanya." But King G8. Okay, would you take this bishop? Ooh, he doesn't. He slides his queen across.
Queen f2 on the board. Bishop falls back, so you're definitely not taking that bishop anymore. Is bishop c5 something that you want to play here, trying to get more pieces off the board?
It looks very tempting. If you can, you should. If you can get the dark square bishops off. But yeah, understandably, Vincent wants to create a bit of breathing space for the white king. Some back rank tactics maybe were in the air, so he's now created some luft, as they say, some air. So yeah, bishop c5 definitely on the radar next. I think that's his plan. Magnus drops back. Bishop c5 still on the cards?
The only thing you need to watch out for is a potential pin on the C line. So I think that requires some calculation, and Vincent is playing on 15 seconds. He wants to get pieces off the board. He wants to neutralize the bishop pair, the big advantage. And look at that, Magnus stepping in with the queen, attacking that C1 rook. No time to pick up the bishop on D6 or the pawn on G7, because queen into rook comes with a check. Wow. Vincent sidesteps, there's a pin. This is getting crazy and out of hand once again. And
only one move.
Yeah.
He finds it, though.
Find it.
Oh my god, Tanya. Wow, I thought Vincent was about to blunder, surely with 1 second left, but he gets the queens off. He was about to lose a piece. I thought that was game over, but wow, this is incredible. Both of them just bringing their A game yet again. Bishop pair, though, Tanya, do you think it's enough?
With pawns on both sides of the board, it definitely gives Magnus some chances. And look at the way Vincent is trying to trade off as many of those pawns as possible. And he finds another tactics, and Magnus reacts because he missed bishop takes pawn. You take that bishop back, knight f5 comes in, the d6 bishop falls, and I think Keymer has escaped one more time, David.
Oh, Magnus, yeah, just it's always these one-move tactics. It's always the knights jumping around. Again, it's still only black who can win. Black has created a passed b pawn of his own, but the fact that there are so few pawns left means that Vincent should be able to get the draw now. The white king is going to come over to that flank. There we go. It's going to make its way over to eventually block the b pawn. Tanya, you're right. Magnus simply missed it. He didn't need to rush. The more pawns on the board, the better his chances would have been.
David,
but now
his clock.
Oh my god.
He's making moves with under a second.
Every time. Literally every turn. Wow.
Oh
It's
my
like Title
gosh.
Tuesday now. It's just a race to the finish with barely any increment. The Black King's coming. Vincent's not out of the woods yet. And he offers to trade the bishops.
But the
Bishop
knight is too
trade.
far. The knight is too far. The king shoulders the white king. The B pawn is coming. Magnus Carlsen knows it. He leans back for the first time in the match. He knows he's done it.
Wow. Heartbreak from Vincent
Ah.
Keymer. He traded off the bishops, which was so desirable.